Thank you all for joining us tonight. My name is Melissa. I'm the Director of Enrollment here at Hillbrook, and we are excited to share Charley Burkly and a little bit more about our college counseling program with you today. Tonight's event is the sixth in a series of virtual webinars that we've hosted as part of our upper school admissions process. And we are excited for you to join us. Feel free at any time to utilize the Q&A feature. We'll leave time for questions and answers at the end of Charley's presentation. But first, to start us off and do an introduction, Head of School, Mark Silver.
Hi, thanks, Melissa. Good evening. My name is Mark Silver. I'm the head of school at Hillbrook, and we are so excited to have all of you here tonight to learn about our college counseling program. As all of you know, we are an 85-year-old plus junior kindergarten through 8th that is expanding and growing into a JK-12, and we could not be more excited. Last spring, when we started this process, our first hire was Mike Peller, the head of the upper school, who you will get a chance to hear from later. And then our second hire last spring was our college counselor, Charley Burkly. And we did that because we knew it was incredibly important to have a great college counseling program from day one. And even before these current eighth graders will become high school students, they'll get a chance to meet Charley, and the opportunity to really get to know her over the next 4 years, and the opportunity for her to be with us side by side as we develop this program was critical to making sure that we had the best possible high school that we could design. So I'm excited to give her a chance to share with you tonight about college counseling. I will add, just to start, as a reminder, they are 8th graders, and so there's nothing that you have to do tonight vis-a-vis college counseling, but certainly understanding what it is that we have planned for them over the next 4 years and the support we're going to provide, I'm sure is critical to the process you're going through as you make a decision about the right place for your son or daughter for high school. So with that, I'm going to introduce Charley, who's going to take it away and share.
Great. Thank you so much, Mark. And it is great to be here with all of you this evening. And since I was last on one of those earlier webinars in the fall, back then I was tuning in at 10 p.m. from Cleveland, Ohio. And now I get to be here in San Jose speaking with people on the other side, many of whom I've had the chance to meet already. So it feels very different at this point, really exciting to be a part of all of this. And I can't wait to meet all of you and to answer any more of your questions you may have as we proceed through this evening's webinar. First of all, while I know that there are bios listed online and information like that, I do still want to share a little bit about me and what my background is. And my entire career, and in fact, my entire life, has been in education, but I have worked in this space for the past 15 years. And during this time, I've always worked for well-established and successful schools. And as soon as I saw this opportunity become available at Hillbrook, I knew that Hillbrook was indeed one of those institutions. But what I looked forward to most was to build upon that, and being able to be part of these discussions, see the space come alive since I last saw it in this spring, has left me even more eagerly anticipating what comes next. And so so college counseling, it's my area of expertise. I am coming from the past 6 years from a really well-established and outstanding college counseling program at University School in the Cleveland, Ohio area. And that's where I had the chance to work with over 200 students and their families in a college counseling capacity, oversee advising, be in DEI conversations, coach at the middle school level. And so working with students and families is what I love to do, and especially as it relates to their college search and their next steps in an educational journey. Prior to that, I worked in undergraduate admissions at Princeton University. Prior to that, in MBA admissions at Columbia Business School, and then I was a middle school science teacher before that. So it's been really interesting and exciting to see that whole trajectory go from that middle school all the way to young professionals and they're going for their full-time MBA, and then also working with established executive MBA candidates as well. So it's been kind of the whole life cycle of education that I've had the opportunity to work with. But undergraduate admissions, it is something we're all aware of. It's in the news, especially at certain times of year. It really peaks. It attracts, I think, all of our interests in wanting to know more and wanting to answer questions and understand really what is happening. Why are these trends going the way they are? And we have absolutely observed a changing landscape over these past several years. But what I'm here to say before we jump into a few slides to just talk about the nuts and bolts of what you can expect from Hillbrook's college counseling program, I just want to say that I believe firmly that the existence of the college admissions process as it is now in 2023 is compatible with a fulfilling, a healthy high school experience, one where a student is simultaneously able to pursue what it is they have an interest in and what they love, and also be that compelling and successful college applicant. So I am hoping that that's what you'll take away too as we jump through these next slides. I think we've also worked hard to anticipate some of the questions that are likely on your mind at this juncture. So I'm going to share my screen at this point so you can take a look at the slides that I have referenced. So here we are, starting at the beginning, moving along. So as we take a look here, I wanted to put that question there up at the top, which is, what are colleges looking for? And that isn't what we are doing high school for, is to match what colleges are supposedly seeking. Things are always changing, but at the same time, we need to know these. Right? We need to build a curriculum that's going to prepare students for what colleges need students to be able to do on their campuses and beyond. And so I've broken this down into two separate questions. So first, who will the student be in the classroom? And then extending it to the community. And truly, if you break down college admissions into the simplest of questions, that's what colleges are trying to do, whether they are, 4-year residential institutions or serving students in any number of different ways. So in thinking about that question of who will the student be in the classroom, colleges are assessing thousands of applications and they need ways to be able to predict that for themselves. And each of these is going to be imperfect in their own way, some more than others. But I want to make sure that we've touched on each, with the most important ones being at the top, the courses that a student takes and what their performance and outcomes are. So for course selection is going to include both the breadth of courses that a student takes as well as the depth. And in that way, it is so exciting to look at what Hillbrook has planned in our course catalog and what students are slated to be taking in 9th grade and beyond. So when it comes to the breadth, that high school is a time for students to gain a broad base of knowledge across different subject areas. And we're in an interdisciplinary world. And whereas there is certainly specialization that's required as you proceed through college or grad school into a career, there's also the fact that a student is going to work even better on an interdisciplinary team with a base amount of knowledge in a number of different areas, and also pursuing passions and working through challenge. And so the breadth that we're offering at Hillbrook is fulfilling the UC A through G requirements. So students are ready to be compelling, successful, interesting, interested applicants for the University of California schools that we're so lucky to have here in our state. And then breadth, I think we sometimes think of it in that way, but it also could be breadth across arts offerings, or it could be breadth across world languages, right? So there's different ways to gain expertise, even across a subject area, and we're excited to have those offerings. For depth, that's where we are seeing students at Hillbrook who will be jumping into advanced studies courses. And so those are our most rigorous college level or even beyond courses that we'll be offering across the subject areas. And those are courses that will be designated as such for the UCs and will be recognized by colleges as well as being the most rigorous courses that Hillbrook is offering in the absence of AP AP classes. And that is a growing trend that we're seeing for high schools across the country. In fact, in the past decade, there are many schools that have been looking to move in that direction and have had to make a shift away from an AP curriculum that is geared towards that year-end test and moving into that space. And locally here in our area, we're looking at schools like Urban and Lick and Nueva and Castellea are schools that have already adopted that mentality. So we've got great models even pretty close to home here, but it's a well-known model that's understood by colleges and then further reinforced in a document that we'll talk about in a moment later, but is a school profile that offers important details about each high school's offerings. So course selection, breadth and depth, that shows so much about what a student's background is, what they've learned, and how they're prepared at a base level and beyond for what comes in college level academics. Also, how is this quantified? How can a college understand that beyond, and even know what courses a student's taking? And they're listed in the transcript. And our transcripts will include grades alongside an additional document, which is the Mastery Learning Record. And the Mastery Learning Record is associated with the Mastery Transcript Consortium. And we really like the combination of being able to have that accompany a transcript, because the Mastery Learning Record is not looking at expertise in one particular content area, but is looking at competencies that cross academic disciplines and beyond. And so the Mastery Learning Record is a place where students can show evidence of these projects they've been working on, the competencies that they've developed in the courses that are listed on their transcript. And then finally, standardized testing, I know, continues to be a hot button issue, and one that can feel a little bit unpredictable. I just saw today that the NCAA is not going to be requiring testing, standardized testing for this year, but at the same time, places like MIT and Purdue are going back to requiring SAT and ACT. So I only offer those examples to show that we continue to be in a changing landscape. Colleges are looking at standardized testing as one measure, and my philosophy is that if a student can perform well in that measure, and it's an option to include that with their academic materials, if it could be helpful for a student, we want every student to have all the tools and all the pieces that they could submit to a college that would allow them to have a successful outcomes there. And I guess I didn't put the asterisk here next to classroom, but I just want to say it's not just classrooms, right? The classroom, a city is our classroom, right, here in San Jose, but the classroom can be labs, writing center, art studio, maker space, and so many spaces beyond just sitting in a chair being delivered course content. Moving from who that student is in the classroom, colleges are looking for how students will contribute to the community. And here you can see, they're trying to get a sense of who is this student as a person, and Hillbrook's core values: be kind, be curious, take risks, be your best. That feeds so well into who our Hillbrook graduates will be when they go to their future college campuses. So colleges are really able to, read the essays, review recommendations, what's a student involved in, to get a sense of what are their life experiences, what kind of character do they exhibit, what's their personality, have they shown leadership through formal positions or more informally, and how they influence friends, how do they collaborate with one another. So these are all indicators among many others as to how a student will really be a positive contributor to their future college environment. And then here, these change maker qualities. I was at a conference, and actually along with Mike and Mark as well. And when we heard these change maker qualities listed as qualities that colleges are increasingly looking for in their students, like, we were so excited, and I was like scrawling these into my notebook, because each and every one, as they were listed, it just sounded more and more like a Hillbrook student: community engagement, diversity, global perspective, social justice, creativity, innovation. Maybe different words are being used, but they're the same things that are so important to us at Hillbrook. And almost as a direct connection to that, you'll see the signature programs, really seeing the city as the classroom, this beautiful view of San Jose here on this slide. But the passion-driven academics, contribute to that academic preparation and going beyond that. And the passion-driven academics being able to do that on the high school level means the students, wherever they end up attending college, are going to make the most of their offerings, the physical spaces on campus, the relationships that they can build, the projects they can work on. And I feel that with a lot of certainty. Next, diversity, equity, inclusion, justice, and action is core to who Hillbrook is as an institution as well. And again, increasingly, something that I've observed as a college counselor is that colleges want culturally competent students and students who can articulate, what their experiences have been in this realm. And recently, University of Colorado decisions came out, and one of their essay prompts is about how no two buffs are alike, and talk about your life experiences and how that shapes your outlook. And that is an essay question for students that we see time and time again, sometimes as a choice, sometimes as a requirement. The hub, wanting to mention this here because the creativity and innovation, how that is listed as just, one of a small series of items, shows that, spaces like the hub, the fact that every student will have familiarity and comfort, with those spaces, and that way of innovative thinking, or thinking innovatively, that is going, that feeds into that entire mindset as well. And then finally, the reach beyond immersives, in combination with the Scott Center for Social Entrepreneurship, where we're asking that question of what matters to you and what are you doing about it. And it's that doing about it piece. That's something that felt absent to me at times as a college admission officer, and also as a college counselor for really well-intentioned, talented students. And so that again feels like a differentiator in the experience, but also in being able to convey that to colleges as our Hillbrook students move through their experience and look ahead to that next step. I wanted to also take a moment this evening just to give you that snapshot sense of what lies ahead, and also, who's this college counselor who's here a few years in advance of college counseling happening in the traditional sense. So here, looking to these next 3 years, so looking at grades 9, 10, and 11, what's happening for students, what's happening for families at this point in time. So there's relationship building. And like Mark said, the ability to connect with each other, to connect with faculty, and for me to be able to see these students from the time that you are ninth graders coming in and really, being at the center of the creation of Hillbrook, Hillbrook's upper school is a really exciting prospect for me. But that relationship building is happening at all points. It's really going to be so central to the Hillbrook experience. For the school-based and regional programming, I just want you to know that, I'm going through a lot today, and, these are things that will be reinforced and further discussed, through programming at school and for families. And so this is just the beginning of a conversation that will extend over the course of many years. For regional programming, we are so fortunate to be part of a network of other independent school college counseling offices. And so they have a case studies program every spring. And so things like that allow us to take advantage of this network of independent schools to get a broader array of programming that's offered on an annual basis. For the PSAT and test prep opportunities, again, that is, in that same mindset that we want students to have every option and opportunity available to them. And test taking is a skill, and it's a life skill, one that, many parents here can definitely know. In some professions, you need to test a lot. In other places, you never need to see another standardized test. But it can be helpful at this point to gain those skills. And so, having access to test prep opportunities opportunities, taking the PSAT for practice in 10th grade, and being eligible for the national merit qualifying in 11th grade are part of that. For personal writing, often the first time a student has to write about themselves and their experiences is when they go through the college process. And so having that experience earlier on in the students' Hillbrook curriculum through English, through advisory, through other areas is also going to be important, just for that self-knowledge, that sense of self, and being able to communicate that to external audiences and maybe even people who students don't know very well. For local college visits, we're so fortunate, and we'll see tomorrow, even though the proximity of San Jose State University, but with other world-class institutions pretty much in our backyard. I look forward to the chance to visit some of these places with students over the course of the next few years, with logistics to BD. And then visits from college admissions representatives. I've gotten questions about, how will colleges understand us and who we are and how we engage with the city? What does it mean to be at Hillbrook's upper school? And we're going to be really excited to welcome college admission officers to Hillbrook to engage with students, to talk about themselves as institutions, and definitely see that as going both ways, seeing students being able to learn about institutions, higher education institutions and colleges and universities, being able to learn a bit more about Hillbrook. And then a final item here in grades 9 and 10 is, you might be a student who is really interested in athletics and wants to pursue that at the college level, or a performing or visual artist, or any number of other things. And if you are wondering and saying, what do I even do if I want to be competitive through that process? College counseling in consultation with athletics, and many of you have had a chance to interact with Tim Downs, and in the visual arts, and thinking about Richard Ong heading up our design, putting all of that together. We are a team, and I just want to emphasize that we'll all be working together, and it's not about waiting till junior year to have these conversations to get your questions answered. And then moving along to 11th grade, right? The year where everything happens. Some of you might be experiencing this in your families right now. You do see an uptick. So everything that was happening and available in the past is continuing to happen and be available. But we're also looking forward to small group college counseling meetings. Students really start doing more college research based on, their interests that are tending to be narrowed over that time. Visiting colleges, college families and students will be in meetings at that point with an officially assigned college counselor. The SAT and ACT, those would be a spring of junior year into senior year typically, that would be taken then. Again, we'll see the landscape, but at this point, it still is making good sense to be doing that. And then students are starting to write essays, prepare for interviews. So all those nuts and bolts. And then what am I doing during this time? So certainly engaging with all the things that I mentioned right there, but also a number of other things that are more, external, and raising awareness, sharing, and learning as it relates to us and it relates to colleges in that community. So connecting with professional organizations. So Bay Area counselors, the Western Association for College Admission Counseling is California and Nevada schools. And there is NACAC, the National Association for College Admission Counseling. I'm a member of that. I'm a member of ACCESS, which is the Association of College Counselors in Independent Schools. And in fact, I'm a member of the leadership team for ACCESS. So I, attend to those meetings, and I also head up an annual program called Colloquium, which is for college counselors around the country. I attend conferences for things like NACAC and ACCESS and others. I'm looking forward to presenting at conferences too, moving forward. But I'm visiting colleges. I was trying to make a whole list of all of the colleges that I'd visited to this point. It's definitely over 50. I don't know how many it is though, because it's a lot. But it's so eye-opening for me, so enjoyable for me. And I can't wait to meet students and start to walk around college campuses and be like, oh, hey, this student, oh my gosh, I can completely imagine them here, or imagine the student using this facility, or being part of the spirit that I feel on this campus. So I'll continue to be doing that with a couple coming up next week. And then colleges host events, on their campuses. They host lots of virtual events. There are admissions officers who come to the Bay Area and have events for families and for counselors. So I know it's a long list, but I just wanted to be able to show you just all of the different angles and relationships and ways that I just love staying current and connected within this profession. And to the right, probably you could tell I'm the picture. I'm the one on the left right there. You can see all of our Telltale conference name tags. But this was my experience at the Access Conference this past June, where I was at the University of Oregon, but I also had a chance to visit Willamette, and then I drove up to Whitman College. So there's always good chances to connect with colleges during those conferences, since that's what we do. And this final slide is, of course, what we are working towards applying to college. And I put this here at risk of having it be completely overwhelming and something that could be too much information right now. But I know that everyone is coming at this with a different approach and with different experiences and different questions. So I just wanted to give you a sense of what ultimately is going to be happening at the end of this process, or at the point when students actually submit applications. So on the left, and these are the current requirements. So in 2022, if students were applying to college, then this is what they were submitting as part of their applications. And there could certainly be some small tweaks, but I don't anticipate too many changes over time. But for the application itself, through the Common Application, the UC application, Cal State Apply, UCAS is for UK schools. There's essays that we talked about, a personal essay, and as well as those college specific prompts, like a couple that I referenced already today. There are activities. So, when someone says that someone's doing something for their college resume, right? That's often for, the activities that a student joins. You're probably expecting, and I will say, that doing things for the purpose of a college resume doesn't usually promote, deep levels of engagement. So if something doesn't work for a student, I'll be recommending they try something else. It's important that students engage, but not in things that they're not interested in and just doing for the purpose of achieving a certain end. But these can include so many things too. So, I didn't put community engagement, I didn't put affinity-based groups, but clubs, sports, jobs, family responsibilities for older or younger relatives, summer programs, research, and then there's a place to be putting academic honors as well. So there's space for 10 activities and 5 academic honors. I was deep within this process with my former school, so this is also top of mind as of just a few months ago for me. There's a counselor recommendation, so that deep knowledge that I will have of students in this founding class, and of course beyond, will be reflected in those counselor recommendations that are supported by all of the important people at the school who are able to offer their input to have that be a comprehensive, overarching narrative of who that student is as a student, what they'll contribute to the community, and any other circumstances that are helpful to mention. Teacher recommendations, it's usually going to be 2 teacher letters. That's typical as of right now, often for those teachers in 11th grade, sometimes in 10th grade. And then the transcript and mastery learning record, again, in tandem, offering that summary of courses, grades, and competencies exhibited by our students. The school profile is a reference document of the school's offering, so it lists all of the courses that we offer. So a college can see that the advanced studies course is the most challenging one that we offer in a certain area, and they can take note of that when they see that a student is pursuing that. They'll learn about the Impact Fellows when they look there through the Scott Center to get a sense of what does this program involve and what does it mean for a student's commitment to social entrepreneurship, social justice. And then I have a bunch of it depends items. There certainly are more, but research, art, and writing supplements. Are there interviews? Are students submitting standardized testing? What are they submitting in the way of need-based aid or merit-based scholarship applications? So again, running through that pretty quickly, but this is what's going to be happening, and it's a checklist, right? And I'll be working with students every step of the way so that they know what's going to be required of them, based on what the current landscape is as they are applying to college, and in the context of what they're looking for, what your family's needs are as well. So I'm so looking forward to the chance to know and work with the students in our founding class at Hillbrook. And so hopefully this summary of what college counseling is about and what my and our approach to the process will be. Hopefully that's helpful for you. And in terms of another snapshot at this point as to what lies ahead and who are those people who will be writing the recommendations and supporting students as they continue through those grades 9, 10, 11, 12, and beyond. I'm going to pass it along to Mike Peller.
Thank you, Charlie. And I hope everyone in the audience can understand now and see now why we were so unbelievably thrilled and excited when Charlie said yes. When I think of Charlie as a college counselor, three words come to mind. One is, deeply, deeply thorough in her work, and you saw that. An unbelievable amount of expertise, and the third piece is, and I've got to witness this now that I've been working with her, is remarkably compassionate, and those three things will be so important in guiding your students. And college is a big topic, so what I do want, bear with me here. What I want everyone in the audience to do is just to take two deep breaths. And I asked you to take two deep breaths, two calming breaths, because the first breath is because your students, the founding students, will begin to work with Charlie right away. And for her to know your kids so well, from the beginning of their journey to the time they graduate, the ability to write letters, to see them, to counsel them, to be the perfect steward in that process is unparalleled. And it's unique to this year. And the second breath is that, while college is far away, what will get kids ready for that, as Charlie alluded to and discussed, is having great faculty and great programs. And so when we got started with the upper school kind of on the ground work this summer, a big focus this summer was building programs. And I put in the chat earlier our course catalog. If you haven't referenced that in a while, please do look at it. It provides a little bit of a North Star for us. And there's a lot of great information in there to get an understanding of the experiences that your students will have. And with that program built, now we have founding faculty, expanding faculty who have been hired, who we've already started working with. Our first meeting was last January, and we are earlier this month, and we're already beginning to put into play our SEL programs, our advisory programs, and build out our curriculum, all based on research. So the work of building the course catalog this summer has enabled that faculty to do some work, and then this fall really was about finding those great people, and now we can introduce them. So you had a chance to meet Charlie. Tim Downs. Tim Downs will be our director of athletics. Many of you met him 2 weeks ago when he was on campus, but just as a reference, Tim is currently the athletic director at the Westminster Schools in Atlanta, Georgia, the top-rated athletic program in the country. Prior to that, he was the director of athletics at the college level, including at Emory and Caltech. Brings an unbelievable amount of experience, and the focus that he made very clear when he was here visiting is that we want to build whole student athletes. We're pushing against the idea of specialization, but how do we get kids who are engaging in multi-sports and building those capacities? And our fourth person on the leadership team, for the upper school leadership team, is Maricela Ornelas, and she's worked for close to 2 decades, mostly as a STEM teacher at a couple of Bay Area schools, but always at the heart of her work was equity. And she is really excited to take on this new role as the upper school director of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And in fact, she's been integral already working with students in the admissions process. And 2 weeks ago, when we had shadow days for some of our students, we hosted a City as Classroom shadow day for those students, and she brought in one of her best childhood friends, our district's council member Torres, and those connections that she's making as a San Jose native will be critical as we sort of become great community members, looking to amplify the great work of what's going on already in the city. And then in terms of our faculty, if you want to change the slide here, Charlie, we have hired 4 full-time faculty at this point. Crystal Matsuoka, who's on the left. Crystal comes to us from Woodside Priory, where she was teaching for over 20 years as an English teacher. As is the case, in many schools, she kind of went into, great teachers oftentimes go into administration, but she realized, I really want to teach. And when this opportunity came to start a school, to build an English program, and to build a comprehensive competency-based education, she leapt at it. And she also has already been doing quite a bit of work with us. And she is a curricular expert, has done a lot of consulting work, and we will be leaning on her expertise in terms of thinking about how do we build curriculum using understanding by design. Our math teacher, Jeremy Smart, he started his math teaching career at Phillips Exeter, which is sort of a renowned East Coast boarding school, then did some work at Dwight School, which is a day school in Manhattan, and then taught for a number of years at Sacred Heart Prep. Jeremy Smart is a curricular wizard and is helping to build our Math 1 through 3 curriculum. What he's been described, and we've seen this already, as being able to sort of reach and push that top high flyer math student, as well as help that student who hasn't yet identified themselves as a math student, and help them find both beauty and utility in the study of mathematics. And that gift of being able to meet the range is something that we're excited for him to bring to the campus. Mike Judge is a longtime science teacher. He studied biochemistry at Harvard, where he got his undergrad and did his thesis work in the med school. And he has been started his career at Punahou, which is a phenomenal independent school in Oahu, and then has been working at Sacred Heart Prep. His emphasis recently has been environmental science, and is looking to build out our 2-year biochem sequence by integrating environmental science topics, which are critical for students to be learning. And then our director of design and innovation labs, Richard Ong. Richard studied biology at Bowdoin for undergrad, but then was interested in systems and went on to study architecture at MIT. This led him to doing some really kind of cool work of building sets down in LA and the Grammys. But he always looked back at his time being a TA in college and loved teaching. And so he got back into teaching, and for 10 years has been working at the Corey Lane School, where he's been teaching design and innovation, as well as bringing a number of teams, FIRST robotics teams, to the World Championships. When he read our job description, he said, I feel like this job description was written for me. When we got to know Richard, we agreed, and we're really excited for him to join. So the team of adults that your kids are going to be working with, this is best in class, dynamic human beings who are so thrilled to get started. And speaking of getting started, if you could just skip to the next slide, we are really thrilled, not just about the adults that we're bringing in, but we're a school. We are designing our school for students, and tomorrow is a really large day for us. We are offering a day in the life of Hillbrook High, where the numbers are now over 90 students that we're going to be 90 prospective students that we're going to be having on at the Tech Interactive, as well as the MLK Library, where we will give them experience of a science class, of a design class, and then an integrated immersive experience that focuses on humanities and Deja. If you are on this call and your student has not yet signed up for this and you want them to, we are sort of bursting at the seams in terms of numbers, but we would be happy to find a way for your kid to join. I think this will be a great opportunity, not only for them to get to meet the faculty, but also to have a real direct experience of what does it mean when we talk about City as Classroom, because now we can take these ideas that we've been discussing throughout the fall and make them real for you. And so I wanted to just conclude there, because while the topic of college counseling may seem far away, the most important thing is who are the adults and the peers that our students will be working with. So at this point, we'll open it up to questions and ask Melissa and Mark and Charlie to come back on with your screens, and we're happy to entertain whatever thoughts you might have. So please put some questions into the question bar. The first question, I appreciate this question. This is a great question. The first question, Charley, this makes sense for you to answer, is how do colleges look at a new school versus an established school in terms of applications and admissions?
Yeah, and I'm so glad that you asked this question, because I know that it in many cases is the number one question that's on families' minds as they're trying to understand, the Hillbrook upper school choice and what comes next. And so the first thing that I will say is that every college applicant is viewed, on their own. They're viewed as themselves, who they are and how they have, navigated high school and what that predicts for college. But at the same time, of course, that doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens with the backdrop of a high school. And part of what colleges do, and part of why I'm so excited to continue connecting with colleges, is that they're doing that with some knowledge that they may already have that's pre-existing. And then, even if they know it or if they don't, the first place they're going to go is that school profile that I've referenced, because that is the place where they can put in the context of the school, how a student's been performing and what opportunities they've pursued, within that particular academic and other context. I will also say that just from a personal perspective, having read applications from students all over the world. So, I read applications for Northern California when I worked at Princeton. I was on that team that was in the committee reviewing this entire geographic area, and oversaw the review for South America, for all of Africa, for places all over the country as well. But anytime that I came across a high school that didn't have any previous applicants, or one that I wasn't familiar with, I just was so intrigued and I wanted to know more, and I often would look into it, and I was a very thorough application reader, as you probably can tell, but I would look into it, and I was always so interested to see, like, what is the school being founded on the basis of? What are they about? And that's what colleges are going to see through our materials, but also if they have any interest in digging deeper, they're just going to be, I think, so excited, as educators themselves, for the kind of experience that we are able to offer for our students, and their students can offer us in return as part of that school community. So, it's a college admissions is no easy task, but we provide all the information that we are able to make it easier for the person doing that. And they're familiar, and colleges are familiar all the time with both new high schools, but also high schools where they just haven't gotten any applicants. So for the purposes of reading an application, they are lacking context in that way too. And even at Princeton, there were places where I was reviewing applications where we had not, from schools where we had not received applications. So I will stop there, and I want to make sure that we're continuing to answer any and all questions, or if you need any more clarification, let me know.
I might add just one piece to that, Charley, too. I had the experience of working at the Nueva School when it went through its expansion from a pre-K-8 to a pre-K-12. And, the conversations about college certainly changed, and sort of blood pressure certainly changed as we went from a 9th grade, 10th grade, and then by 11th to 12th grade, there was some anxiety around, like, how are we going to fare? 19 of the 77 went into Stanford, and a bunch went to Harvard and Princeton and Yale, as well as, and I mentioned those schools as, but highly recognizable schools, but as well as other great fits for the kids. And what we heard, because we did really well, and it was asked the colleges, what was it about our kids? And as Charley was saying, it was the sort of this explicit curriculum that is part of founding. The amount of learning, the amount of expectations for kids to start clubs and build culture and really work alongside adults requires a lot of transferable learning that colleges felt really excited about. And so we know that will be true here as well. And if you haven't watched it already, an earlier webinar was with a bunch of founding students, because we wanted families and students to have a sense of, like, what was it like to be a founder? And so we'll share that link with you in just a little bit. Oh, it's just been shared. The next question, also for you, Charley. You're in the hot seat tonight. Is it true at all that, given that we've had students to go to college for a long time, just not from our high school, that we've had students, Hillbrook students going to college, is there some connection that college will make with those students?
Yeah, good question. So, I mean, I think that everything that is mentioned there about, this, it's not new that Hillbrook has prepared students for the rigors of academic challenges that they experience in high school and beyond, right? And, we hear from students that like the core values stay with them, in the years after their time. There is not, to my knowledge, going to be any, connection in terms of data and reports being run where you can see where a student, attended middle school and how that connects. But I think on the flip side, maybe not for the college admissions purposes, there's Hillbrook alumni everywhere, right? Like, you don't know, like they could end up in the admission office reading your application. So like there's that aspect of things. And I think it's a good reminder to us all the time that, we don't have, 12th graders who will be graduating when our 9th graders come in, but we have Hillbrook students who have been through this, who are role models, who are part of our community. And that's an important thing for us to keep in mind as we keep making those connections within our community.
Thanks, Charley. This next question is not about college, and I think, Melissa, it makes more sense for you to answer this. What's left in the admissions process at this point?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. So we're pretty far in the admissions process. I recognize a lot of the names visiting us tonight on this webinar. So many of you have done your campus visits, have either completed or scheduled your parent conversations. That's really the next step for most folks right now. Is we're inviting all parents to have a 30 or 40-minute conversation with members of our upper school team, to have some one-on-one time to share more about your family and more about your student, so we can help build a better picture of what the overall profile looks like. In addition to tomorrow's day in the life of Hillbrook School, we're also finalizing a date for a virtual Meet the Faculty. I know a number of families are unable to join us for tomorrow's in-person event, so there will be some time in March that will offer virtual time for you to come and do a Q&A and meet some of those faculty members that Mike highlighted a little bit earlier. It looks like we don't have any other questions in the Q&A. I want to thank everybody again for your time. And thank you, Charley, for joining Hillbrook and sharing more about what the Hillbrook College Counseling Program is going to look like. We look forward to seeing many of you tomorrow for our Day in the Life event in downtown San Jose. Again, if you have any questions that pop up, please feel free to reach out to any of us by email or reach out directly to the admissions office, and I'm happy to pass along your message. Otherwise, have a good night, everyone.